Hello and welcome to my latest weekly video news from Madison's, excuse me. Well, of course, last week all about the budget, relatively underwhelming for the property sector. I think it was hoped before it came out that Rishi would look at such areas as planning, green efficiency and changing the IHT rules for people downsizing, a lot of people locked in their homes, and it was hoped that if Rishi tried to encourage people to downsize by being some sort of reduction on the IHT payable and eventual death, that might help things, but sadly no mention of that. The only two things really that affected the property world are that there is going to be a £2 billion tax put on the biggest developers to help with the cladding issue of these high-rise blocks in London. That is a massive issue. Actually, you have many sellers who would want to move but who are locked into those buildings because they're caught up in a kind of a huge controversy about who's going to pay to put those buildings right. At the moment it falls very firmly on the leaseholders, and they will pass it on in many places if they can to the residents who simply can't afford them. So you have this sort of ticking time bomb really of trying to get those high-rise blocks sorted. To this tax put on the biggest developers, I think it should have gone further, looked at who originally passed those authorities to put that unsafe cladding on. I think it's it could have done a lot more. Be interesting to see, but a step in the right direction definitely. And then the other big change, of course, was to do with Brownfield Sites, and they're putting a £1.8 billion fund aside to decontaminate those brownfield sites. Brownfield sites are anything where so not green belts, but where there has been a former structure. So it could have been a town centre where there was an old garage or a petrol station or a disused industrial building, a warehouse. And normally that land is very expensive to decontaminate. So that fund is hoping that it will help 160,000 new homes be built by giving developers some resource to decontaminate those brownfield sites. Interesting to see that Rishi got his knuckles wrapped, didn't he, at the beginning before he started to deliver his autumn budget, because quite a few of the points of the budget had already been released to the media. In days gone time, that would have been grounds for dismissal or resignation. Normally those very poignant images of the Chancellor leaving with the red briefcase, not quite knowing what's going to be inside it, and a big telling off from the House of Parliament for releasing those details. So that was quite interesting. And of course the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee is meeting this Thursday, where there is great expectation that base rate will go up. So we still have that coming as well. But all in all, a relatively uninspiring budget. I think landlords will be breathing a sigh of relief that there wasn't talk about changing stamp duty for purchase of investment properties, and also CGT, capital gains tax, which is charged on the disposal of those assets. I think everyone's possibly been thinking that would come, wasn't mentioned. Huge sighs of relief everywhere, I think, but watch this space. I think there might be coming, but Rishi simply had bigger fish to fry in this budget. And that's just, I've just concentrated on two of the smaller areas that affected property there. Well, Japanese knotweed, it's a scourge of anyone trying to sell their house. You have to declare it on your property information form. It's a specific question, so you can't get away with pretending you weren't asked. And it basically can be very destructive, as we've heard. Its roots can penetrate foundations, cement. It's very popular growing along railway lines, so any properties that are near railway lines are deemed to have a higher risk. And can spread greatly. You have to, if you've had it, normally put in place a 10-year management plan, unless it's massively on the wane. But interestingly, some team of scientists have found an interesting new way to dispose of it. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but basically they burn it in a condition that doesn't have any oxygen in it, and that creates a lot of carbon, and that carbon can then be put back into the ground, and it's very good at creating more carbon and protecting those carbon resources in our ground. So it's actually seen as a way at the moment to get rid of Japanese knotweed. It's hugely expensive, it's a contaminated waste. So that's a great way not only to reduce the cost of getting rid of it, but also ensure that in getting rid of it is something great for the planet. We're hearing a lot about climate change at the moment, so that's certainly one step that could be looked at and investigated further to really help with our world's natural resources. So quite interesting, that one. Well, I'm sure you all had a great Halloween this weekend just gone. And of course, this next weekend coming up is fireworks. So it's funny how we forget so quickly, don't we? 5th of November last year, another full national lockdown was called, and certainly for people, or sort of not full national lockdown, but further restrictions regarding shops and meeting people in bubbles, outside of your bubble. So fireworks couldn't happen last year. You were only allowed to meet one other person outside who wasn't in your bubble. So great to see the fireworks coming back this year. Do take care and use precautions as always. But there are loads of great ones going on. Obviously, Dunollan here in Tunbridge Wells has a really spectacular one, but lots of others going on in the villages. So I hope you enjoy those. One new property that we've launched that is proving very, very popular. Be quick if you want to have a look at this one. And I think that's because of the sheer value of money it presents. 350,000 will buy you this wonderful 3-bedroom townhouse, about a 7-minute walk from the Pantiles, the High Street and the mainline station, and a lovely little south-facing garden, really well presented. You could either live in it as is or refurbish and remodel as you want. It's got off-street parking, garage. It is such a box ticker for such a great, great price. So if that's of interest, do give us a call. I hope you have a great week. Wrap up warm for fireworks if you're enjoying it, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.